Australia's government is threatening Elon Musk with censorship. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called Musk an arrogant billionaire for refusing to take down a post on X, content on X. Now, on Monday, a judge ruled that Musk should remove from the platform video of a bishop being stabbed at a church in Sydney last week. The video shows Bishop Mari Emanuel being stabbed during a church service that was being live-streamed on April 15th. Australia's e-safety commissioner Julie Inman Grant requested that X hide graphic and distressing photos of the Sydney stabbing and fully remove the video from its platform for all users, not just blocking it in Australia. Musk responded to the request on X, writing, "Should the safety commissar, an unelected official in Australia, have authority over all countries on Earth?" Musk was given 24 hours to comply with the order. Prime Minister Albanese said that social media needs to have social responsibility with it. Mr. Musk is not showing any. And an Australian senator escalated matters further, calling for Musk to be put in prison. Let's watch.
So when it comes to the tech billionaire, like I've already said, I think he's a social media knob with no social conscience. He has absolutely no social conscience. Someone like that should be in jail and the key be thrown away. That bloke should not have a right to be out there on his own ideology platform and creating hatred.
In other news, Musk is facing some bad news at Tesla. Profits at his electric car company are down 55% this quarter compared to last year. The company is laying off 10% of its global staff as sales are flopping. Over the weekend, the company cut the starting prices of its Model X, Model Y, and Model S cars by $2,000. This Australian speech case is pretty outrageous. I think many of us watched the clip as it went viral last week of the priest being stabbed. It was being live streamed at the time. It's really visceral to watch. He did survive, and in fact, he is speaking out saying that he objects to the idea that that video should be banned in Australia and around the world. He thinks it is of note that people should be able to watch it. And frankly, it is not nearly as gruesome as some of the other kinds of images that we see, frankly, percolating out of places like Gaza on a daily or weekly basis. And I have significant concerns about what it means for a government to say, basically, a video is too gruesome for the public to consume, because one could very easily see a government like ours who has now effectuated a TikTok ban saying, well, we don't like you consuming a certain kind of thing. It is violent in nature. It also has some political undertones that we don't like. So we're going to say we're banning it under a kind of e-violence provision. Yeah,
I could not agree more. It is not the role and should not be the role of the government. We can't trust, and that's not just the Australian government, particularly any government cannot be trusted with that level of editorial control over the internet. If platforms want to set rules for what you have, standards for what kind of graphic or violent imagery they have on their platforms, allowing it in some cases, deciding it's newsworthy, maybe making steps to take steps to blur it. They have to be allowed, frankly, to figure out those policies on their own. They have to be given leeway to decide what makes sense, what are the cases. Some of these are hard calls. In what cases, if a mass shooter is live streaming, going door to door in a school or something, you'd think, oh, we definitely want to take that down. Although I've thought about that before. Honestly, if there are people in the school with their phones, they might want to know where the mass shooter is. There could be a public safety rationale for actually allowing the content to stay up there. Yeah. These are hard calls. The platforms got to work these things out for themselves. For the government to step in and say, no, we order you to take this down, that's just our position. And then to call him arrogant and say he's not being a good citizen. And again, this wasn't just for Australia. This was going to be for the entire world. Yes. It could also be the case that, frankly, given the laws in different countries or the standard or the cultural practices in different countries, that you have to, frankly, even though it's not ideal, have different standards for what kind of content is available in which countries. So that goes even further into the realm of crazy.
Now, I agree with all of that. Here's the problem. Elon Musk has already acquiesced to a very similar request to ban all criticism of Modi at his request, at the Indian government's request last year. So now he's grandstanding. And I agree with his position in this instance, but why was it the case that he's willing to stand up to Australia, but last April said he was willing to block tweets in India at the request of the government, journalists tweeting critically about the president of India? What is this double standard going on? And does this have to do, as some people have argued, with his own financial interests in India as a location where he plans to build Teslas, where he has contracts to build cars for his main gig, right? That's his main money-making gig, that he's willing to basically compromise all of these free speech principles for his own personal benefit. And that's where I think the second part of the story that we reported comes in here. He is not having a good year from a business perspective. Obviously, the failure of Twitter to recoup the investment has been covered at length. The fleeing of advertisers, whether or not you think they're justified in going, that's the way the markets are gone, and he is not recouping the revenue that he thought he would. He has tried to move to various other subscriber models. The blue check model and all of these things hasn't worked. He's now contemplating implementing a $1 kind of minimal fee for anyone to basically do anything on the app, whether it's liking, whether it's posting at all. Will that work? I don't know. I'm doubtful. But now, as he's facing all of these pressures, he's laying off 10% of his workforce. One really does have to ask the question, is someone who is financially compromised in this way, even if he is one of the richest men in the world, really about free speech, willing to stand his ground on free speech? Or is he simply using low-hanging fruit like Australia to burnish his reputation after having fully failed to live up to his own ideals with a much bigger market and a much bigger a place with much bigger financial implications for him, like India?
I mean, sure. I think it is the case that no matter, despite what he says, he is running a business. He said he's prepared to lose money and has lost money on Twitter so far in order to support his principles. You know, you've, I think, correctly called into question a number of places where he didn't fully stand up to principle. Now, again, I take the position that that is the government's fault. How you respond when a government of the world threatens you and says you have to do this or we'll take down your company or we'll hurt your site or whatever, the harm is being perpetrated is not in how you respond, but in what the government is doing. So I think Australia, India, Brazil, the European Union, China, the U.S., all of these governments that have, to varying degrees and in different circumstances, put pressure either indirectly or objectively, directly, on social media platforms to censor content and do other things, are misguided and should stop doing that, and we should complain about that. If he goes along with it in some cases, I mean, he should explain his decision making, and it's fair to call him inconsistent. But he might simply be deciding, right, in this case, it's too much of a business hit to resist, and in this case, it's not.
Then you don't get to be the hero of free speech. You don't. You can just be a guy just like everyone else, following the laws of whatever country in the world you go to, like everybody else. But that doesn't make you cannot say, oh, I'm pounding my chest, and standing up to Australia. When you're only willing to do so because it's a tiny market. It's the same way that you see the NBA, Apple, all these companies bending the knee for China because they're not willing to use the market.
Right.
If suddenly
that's because China's bad.
Yeah, but if suddenly you had the head of the NBA or LeBron James or any of these other people who have kowtowed or walked back their position, the CEO of Apple, Jon Stewart, recently talked on his show about how he was literally censored from having Lena Khan on his show because of how it was going to play on the other side of the world, and how how Apple in particular didn't want to engage with someone who was going to put legal restrictions on its ability in the antitrust context. So.
I know, but we all have to make little compromises. If we just said,
it
can never operate with anyone who's forcing any censorship on us, the platform would operate nowhere.
You're just another person complaining about the fact that there are governments that you disagree with in the world.
Well,
you are not acting in a principled way. So him standing up to Australia means nothing other than it doesn't cost him very much to do so. It doesn't make you heroic.
Sure. Well,
there's some value in calling out what I think are incredible overreaches, saying that you want to throw Elon Musk in jail because he won't take down a video that the stabbed man himself doesn't even want to take down.
Yeah,
it's outrageous. But the problem is Elon Musk is able to assume an authority that he has not earned to talk about free speech rights and interests, including in the United States of America, even as he is the one in many cases that is violating people's speech rights, banning people from Twitter.
The government is violating their speech rights.
Elon Musk in the United States of America made a choice to ban the Elon Jets account. Musk and the United States of America chose to say you are banned from Twitter. You are banned from Twitter if you tweet from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free. There's no American government has had a lot of problems in this respect, but that's a choice made by Elon Musk to selectively ban people who he likes or doesn't like, or whose ideology he agrees with or doesn't agree with in the United States of America.
In those cases,
Twitter.
yes, but the choice to ban criticism of Modi or news about Tiananmen Square in China or authority. That is not being made by the platform.
who
That's
cares?
made by the government.
Who cares?
I care because the government's the one with the guns.
Yeah,
The government's the one that can kill you
I
for not
feel
doing
like we're talking past each other, Robby. Anybody can complain about it. I can complain about that with principle because I'm not at the same time trying to make money off an authoritarian government while pretending like I am above it all, like I have better principles and morals than everybody else. I don't have business in India. I'm not compromising my values.
But if you did, but I wouldn't say you're compromising your values. I would say, again, it's the fault of the government.
Well, that's fine. But the problem is by grandstanding the way that Elon Musk does, he gets a complete and total pass from all of his fans for doing the thing that is the worst thing for the American
government
audience.
put a gun to your head,
restricting. No government putting a gun to his head, making the choice to ban accounts
I agree
in
with
the
you in
United
those
States
cases,
of America.
but you're talking about Modi. You talked about.
But wait a minute. Right now, our government literally banned an entire platform because of how powerful.
Right, that's very bad.
How powerful various interest groups, including AIPAC, the Israel lobby, a foreign government lobby, are, and wanting to shut it down because the horrible visceral images coming out of Gaza are having an effect on the public. That is authoritarian, and who's there lockstep with him, saying if you say from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, I will ban you from Twitter. Elon Musk. That is not someone who is an advocate of free speech.
All I'm saying is, I agree with you in those cases, but you've raised the foreign government cases. If you have a standpoint, I will never shoot Robby, and then the government comes in, puts a gun to your head, and says shoot Robby, and then you do it, I'm not going to be mad at you. It's not your fault.
Right, but
you're not a hypocrite. You didn't violate your principles.
I get your point, but that is not the analogy. That is not the analogy. The analogy is if I say
not with the Elon Jets accounts, but with the government.
If you're here and your brother is there, and the Australian government says, shoot Robby's brother. And I say, no. I'm courageous.
Ryan is in jeopardy now.
I am courageous. I am bold. I am a free speech hero. I'm never going to shoot Robby's brother. I could never do that. Couldn't be me. And then India goes, shoot Robby. I'm like, sure. Because I can profit from you being dead.
But again, they're the problem. I wouldn't waste any words being upset at you about it.
No, what I should say is, oh my God, how horrible it is that I had to shoot both of these guys. Both of these governments are a problem. How evil it is that India forced me to shoot my co-host Robby. Elon's not saying any of that. He's rolling over and saying, gotta sell some cars.
All right, let us know what you think and whether Robby should survive the rest of the segment. More Rising right after this.